What's going on, everyone? It's David Palmer and Leo King, and welcome to Deep Astrology, your weekly astrology forecast for the week of November the 18th through the 24th of 2020. And thanks for watching HighVibe.tv. This show is exclusive in live form. If you're on HighVibe.tv, we do it on Wednesday nights. And of course, if you're a subscriber, you get this whole show in its full entirety with the charts that are being shown on the second part of the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, we're going to watch the recording of this. It's premiered, and when it gets to the chart portion, you get the audio version, but you do get the video here at the beginning. So please join HighVibe.tv today. Become a member. Get all the exclusive daily video horoscopes, weekly horoscopes, and so much more awesome shows and awesome talent that we have on HighVibe. It is growing every day. So many awesome new talent coming on. So many awesome new shows. Super proud of everybody on HighVibe.tv. It is definitely the spiritual network that you must not be sleeping on, especially during these times. And I actually have a video that you can go in the paid video section. It's called Climax 2020. I'm sure you're knowing it. We're feeling this energy right now, and it's starting to get to its climax. So you want to understand how to get through this eclipse season, everything coming up into the end of 2020. I did this awesome, I think it's almost 4 hours. It's about 3.5, I think. Video that is done deep astrology style, just like this. And actually, it also combines some other styles that I've done videos with. Make sure that you check it out. Go to highvibe.tv, go on the paid video section, and you can purchase and watch it on any of the apps, which are down below, or on your website, highvibe.tv, and you can Chromecast through there too. This is a show where I'm going to channel you this weekly's horoscope, and then, of course, I'm going to go deep into the charts, which are brought to you by Astro Gold. You can get that on any Mac device or Android. But if you're on PC, make sure you check out Solar Fire. Same company, same awesome stuff that they put out there. Really appreciate all their awesome work that they keep doing. Now, this week, we are going through quite a very interesting way to look at life for all of us when it comes to our perspective. We have the sun that's going to leave Scorpio and enter into Sagittarius. Now, that in itself, we see that every year. You'd think it'd be a typical thing, but when the South Node is in Sagittarius, which it has not met with the sun until the last time that the South Node was in Sag, which you'd have to go back to 2002 into 2003. So, you know, this is going to be a very, very interesting week, to say the least. Now, Sagittarius definitely brings up the energy, and it's very Jupiterian, and it makes us feel more positive, and it's going to bring up a lot when it comes to our belief structures. And what I am assessing, all this astrology, and I'm going to give you all of it, but just by that transit alone, what you don't believe might just happen. So I think we're going to hear more things start to come out, especially by the end of this week into this weekend, about things that, no, there's no way. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And that's what? Because whenever we see the South Node in Sag, we see the sun here, it doesn't matter what sign it is. The sun and the South Node are going to bring up all the issues that you need to let go of. And one of those things are beliefs. And especially, beliefs have become so intense with Jupiter and Pluto that just met for the third and final time in Capricorn this year. And that's a 13-year cycle for Jupiter-Pluto, and we have not seen Jupiter-Pluto in Capricorn since 1771. Our whole belief systems about government, about power, about control, and especially within ourselves, the things that we do to block ourselves from the great things that we want to achieve or have in our life, have all been part of this South Node in Sag, because Sagittarius rules Jupiter. Jupiter in Capricorn is at its fall position, and it's been with Pluto, and now it's on its way to go meet with Saturn in Aquarius on December 21st of 2020. So this Sagittarius transit's not a typical one. It's one where you're going to have to face, where are the beliefs that don't check out? And you know, it's interesting, especially in these times that we're in, with Neptune pretty much at dead stop. Well, at the end of this month, when we are going to be in eclipse season, we are going to be having Neptune turn direct. That's not now, but we are at this weird place when it comes to Neptune and Pisces, dealing with media, dealing with our illusions, dealing with illusions in the world that are crippling. They're falling apart. And this Sagittarius energy is going to have to learn from its own mistakes of looking at the mirror the wrong way, of the illusions, or falling for the trap of the illusions. And this Mercury that went retrograde is done with its whole process of coming through the shadow period, stationing retrograde, then stationary direct in Libra on election day, right, is when Mercury came direct in Libra. And it's interesting, on Thursday we're seeing Mercury out of shadow and in Scorpio and ready to move forward. It's also made its oppositions to Uranus, and we're going to see Mercury this week in Scorpio make nice trines to Neptune. So we're really getting to the nitty-gritty and to the depths and to the truth this week and starting to see through the veil, especially with Neptune stopped. I also think that it's very interesting. Venus is finishing in its home sign of Libra with a square to Saturn in its home sign of Capricorn. This is a tough one, but it is one where we have to start to make better choices about relationships, which ones really are on the path we want. So there's a lot of energy on the fence and things that we want to do. Money comes up, especially with Venus. What is it? Where's the money system going? What's the systems and the platforms? And there's so much going on right now in the money world, especially the world economy, not just economy in each nation, but world and global economics, that we've been hearing about global resets. We've been hearing about a lot of these things, and I would recommend that you take some time to look at these things, because with Jupiter, Pluto, and with the fact that we're seeing Venus in its home sign square Saturn in its home sign while Jupiter, Pluto are together, while Jupiter's on its way to Saturn, while we're switching into, right after that transit of Venus in Scorpio with Uranus and Taurus, while eclipse season starts next week. This is definitely a lot of writing on the wall that likes to kind of be skimmed in our mainstream world. But we all know, and we all can see, and we can all look deeper, that a lot of the things that are going on right now, and this is coming from astrology and something that I've been saying for a long time, with Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in Capricorn, there is this big story and there's a lot of allusions to it, and we've got to become aware of them this week. I think that it's extremely important for all of us, especially at this time right now, to make sure we really start to realize that, yes, Venus square Saturn, it can be very difficult. But Venus square Saturn, I was born with that alignment, just in different signs, Scorpio and Leo. But I will say that I've learned a lot from this transit in my life. Self-worth issues. Feeling like, I have to work harder just to get what I want in life. These are themes that come up with Venus square Saturn. Difficult choices about, well, in order for myself to feel better, I'm going to have to push this out of the way or choose this or skim on that in order to gain over here. So this is an important moment with this sun finishing in Scorpio, where we have to rise to the phoenix this week, especially when it comes to truth, with Mercury that's going to be behind it, but out of shadow and starting to gain its speed again, of like, are we going to be in truth? Are we going to look at the truth? Are we going to look deep at it? Are we willing to see the buried treasure that Mercury has revealed and that this sun finishing in Scorpio is revealing to us? We have to do that on our own. We have to make the transformation on our own. We can't keep losing ourselves in what the world belief system is. South Node Sag. We got to do our own investigations. We got to be our own Carmen Sandiego's and Dick Tracy's when it comes to this North Node in Gemini. And I think it's very interesting because having the North Node of Gemini and seeing Mercury now cruising in to come to make a quincunx to that North Node is very important to note. And as the nodes are starting to square Neptune exact, we're within about a degree by the end of this week. And as we come into these eclipses, that'll be in Sag and Gemini, I think that it's important for us to go, this is a mind-bending reality. And there is a lot of things that we can intuitively sense that either feel like that makes common sense to me, but where are the irregularities and where is there this whole, no, don't worry about it, it's all good? Because we all are our own detectives right now in life to try and find the better life. And we are being aware of what they are, but it's about acting on it. Remember, Mars is direct now in Aries. That courage to face the fears, to go through the life that we define is so important, because if you are not willing to define things from your own perspective, your own research, and more importantly, your own common sense and your own investigations of what you're actually seeing factually and where data in your life isn't in alignment with the divine, and you're just kind of in the, I don't know, I'm just hoping, or I'm just going to let things be like how they are. I mean, this is where people become complacent in believing, because they want to keep the same perspective over things, issues, emotions, and lifestyles and choices that are not matching your original hopes and dreams for. So there's a little bit of that truth bomb in yourself this week before these eclipses come that are in dealing with the higher and the lower mind, and with Neptune stationing and squaring the nodes in North Node being in Gemini and South Node being in Sag, and with the Sun now being in Sagittarius by this week. Oh boy, the sun is ruled by Leo. Are we really happy in lost beliefs or lost hopes? We can correct our lives right now by being smarter, by actually being willing to look at all the things in life, opposed to, well, I got this bit of information and I'm already making a huge hypothesis off that. It's like, keep looking more into things. That's what Mercury and Scorpio definitely want, especially trying Neptune. It's going to be an interesting week with the moon, as the moon is finishing in Capricorn on Wednesday with Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. And so there's this occultation happening, which it's kind of crazy, because if we really think a month from now is when, Jupiter and Saturn are going to be in Aquarius. So this is one of those final moon and Capricorns with Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, okay? And it's kind of interesting that we're still going to have, because if I'm doing the math in my head correct, and I'm doing this on the 18th, we're going to have one more right before it all happens. And I've done a horoscope on that, and it's pretty crazy. It'll be like the moon, Jupiter, and Saturn at 29 Cap. So this next month, it's going to feel like control. It's going to feel like options are very small, and that's where we have to have that positive part of Sag and see the bigger perspective of things, but not get lost into stories that we choose not to be part of, because we're not going to be falsely led into them. I used this analogy on a reading today, and then I used it just on my Instagram just right before I went live. The bear traps, the mouse traps, the whatever traps, you could see them everywhere. There's no leaves over them. But for some reason, there's this part of ourselves that go, well, I don't think it'll close if I just put my foot into this and believe in what I'm being told. It's like, are you really going to keep falling for that? Especially in yourself, right? In your own self. Like, am I going to keep following that pattern that's not connected with my soul and believing that that's going to all work out? Like, this is a very positive moment for people, if you're willing to be honest and admit that there is more to learn. There is more data to gather, and there is more of a twin-like energy that Gemini represents, a mercurial energy, a hermetic element to things. That anything that doesn't feel sovereign, that doesn't feel connected in the similar ways that you feel the same connection, which I think that we all have to look at this as a community, and as more importantly the collective, and go, as humans and as a collective, do we all want to keep following Divisiveness? I mean, this is Neptune and Pisces. It creates massive divisiveness every cycle. And I would say that it's very important with these nodes. You got to watch your mental health, because the blow up of the wake up of when your perspective of things changes because it's not true to what you originally thought or what you originally had believed so deeply in, changes and can rattle your soul sensitivities and rattle your mind and make you feel like you're going crazy, because others feel like they're going crazy when they see behind the veil and they see the truth going on, but it's like not the same kind of crazy, because it's like, that's crazy that's happening, opposed to, oh my gosh, that's crazy that I fell for that. Think about that one. Now, Venus in Scorpio is at its detriment, right? Likes to be in Taurus, the opposite sign. So, especially with Venus finishing here in Libra, with the square to Saturn and Capricorn, I think it's very important when it comes to how we choose our relationships, from friends to partners to businesses, and the things that we're creating in our life. You know, what really has the justification that's in alignment? There's a lot about being in true alignment right now and the balance that has to be restored within our lives. We have to take action upon that. Mars and Aries, again, have to take action. And this Venus in Scorpio loves attachment. It loves to attract. It loves to bring in and receive. But let's make sure we understand what we're ready to receive in our life. It's important. Mercury has gone retrograde in the zone that Venus is crossing from Libra to Scorpio. Venus already retrograded in these spots in 2018 in October, November. So you're getting a lot of insight into falling for traps that you fell into in October, November of 2020. But you could be a little bit, don't be like scared, because it might feel similar. You'll know if it feels similar, like it's going to go downhill, because it'll be like too similar. But there's always elements of similarity, but knowing how to choose the right path on this time. And I think that's important to remember, because this moon, as it finishes in Capricorn, goes into Aquarius, makes squares to Uranus. And we're going to see this moon in Aquarius at the same time make some really interesting angles, to where I think it's going to be very important for us to go, we can see the truth. We need to look at a satellite view. This moon in Aquarius is like getting prepared to start meeting with Saturn and Jupiter over this next year into 2021. There's only one more lunar cycle left of it in Capricorn with Jupiter and Saturn. So I think it's extremely important for us at this time to go, we need to use this moment to be able to see things from all angles. We need to make sure that we look at our life from all angles and see what is in alignment that feels like, yes, this is my similar energy. And we need to drop our beliefs for one moment and come into our own common sense and come into what our excitement is, come into what our divinity is, and come into what brings us that light energy that makes us excited again. Because I know Sag is jovial, but Gemini is excitement. And so we could try and find jovialness through trying to stay in the same story. But this astrology is telling us to change the story with Jupiter that's just met with Pluto for 3 times this year, on its way to meet with Saturn. It's time for change in our stories. Are we going to keep being jovial about the story that we would like more excitement in? Or are we going to rewrite that story? Are we going to use this Venus in Scorpio to transform our relationship energies after a Venus square Saturn in their home signs and in Libra? Are we ready when it comes into Scorpio to finally make a great change? Are we ready to attract what we really want to attract? That's what we're getting to the bottom of, especially with just Mercury right away on Thursday coming out of its shadow. Boom! We're going to get much clearer on that, and we're going to start to really figure a lot of this deep stuff out. The moon will come into Pisces and square the sun in Sag, which is going to be a merry-go-round, okay? Whenever we see mutable squares, especially the sun and the moon, It can be magical, I'm not going to lie. But it also could be very hard on the mental health thing when your mind is blown. I mean, it's a lot like Alice in Wonderland, but it's got an element to where, especially because we got the nodes involved and we got Neptune involved. So it's like this sun and moon is going to start tapping into, and not exact, but it's in those zones, the weirdness surrounding our perspective, mind, and illusion. And Neptune rules where we kind of buy our own illusions, our escapes, and we want to get out of that. We want to get out of those traps of soul that are not truly who we are. And I think that this square that's coming, after we see this and once we come into this weekend, it's time for magic in your life that's exciting, that you have to rewrite, and that you know the code. But you only know the code because you can see the code, you can figure out the code, and you can see the duality within whatever it is that you are trying to attract to bring betterness into your life, whether that's a partner, whether it's a project, or just your overall self and soul as the evolution that we're all going through as the collective. So I just ask you that this week, even though this isn't one of like the big, holy cow, I mean, it is going to be big. Don't get me wrong. These are extreme times, and these are a lot of transits. But, even though this isn't like, oh my gosh, Jupiter, Pluto, or oh my gosh, this isn't Mars coming direct, or a new moon like last week. So, we're about to see what all that was about. And it takes some time with that. Whenever you see that much happen, we are actually in the middle of a massive transformation in our lives, and it's being rolled out just like day by day, hour by hour, because it's so much energy, and it's whether or not you're willing to see it, whether or not you're really ready to hear it and bring it in and ground it. So let's go to the charts right now. Make sure that you become a subscriber to highvibe.tv. Truly appreciate it. There's so much on this network. Apps are down below. You can subscribe through those apps, or you can go to our website, highvibe.tv. Let's look at the charts. I'm going to move a mic here, but we've got some Helio to go through first, which I do show everybody on YouTube. And I think that this Helio to me was really crazy. I was like, wow, talk about some illusionary elements. We're going to go a little deeper here today to take a look at what the Helio is up to. Let's see here. All right. All right, there we go. I think we're golden. So, I've got this set for, of course, we started filming a little after 10 p.m. Pacific. But what's the big one this week that I'm looking at? It's Mercury and Venus opposite Neptune from the sun. So we actually start November 18th, 2020, with Mercury exactly opposite Neptune. See that? From the sun's point of view, not the Earth. From the Earth's point of view, right, as Mercury is in Scorpio, just coming out of shadow, meaning we could see Mercury move forward. It doesn't look like it's going backwards. Because see, from Earth's point of view, from the sun, look at it, it's like, oh yeah, Mercury's moving forward. But with Neptune here from Earth's view, and where Mercury is, it just looks like, they're in a good aspect, right? Mercury and Neptune trine. Because see, from Earth's point of view, it looks like, oh, okay, yeah, it's making that trine. But really, this is our minds and our relationships and our values, as Venus as well is going to oppose Neptune by the end of this week. We also have Jupiter and Saturn from the sun's point of view, which are still in a tight conjunction. But you can see Jupiter now has taken over Saturn. And you got to remember now, this is a new 10-year cycle out of the 20-year cycle, because Jupiter is now going to be in front of Saturn, even though Jupiter is the one that always catches up to Saturn. But it's just like we've been seeing Jupiter behind Saturn for the last 10 years, when the Jupiter-Saturn opposition happened in 2010. And that Jupiter-Saturn opposition happened with Jupiter and Uranus in Pisces, and then Jupiter and Uranus in Aries, while Saturn was going back and forth from Virgo and Libra. That was a very intense time. So we're ending that last 10-year cycle and stepping into this new one, although that's from an Earth's point of view, from what I was talking about just recently. But from a sun's point of view, right now at least, the sun's like, okay, let's bring some more positive energy. And definitely those two met, and they're starting a new 20-year cycle. We have to see that still from Earth's point of view, because from Earth's point of view, it doesn't look like Jupiter's overtaken Saturn yet. That's December 21st, 2020. So you can see that there. Pretty crazy. But let me show you that Venus real quick here at the end of the week. Huh? No. So there's Venus by the end of this week opposing Neptune exactly. Bing, bang, boom. And that's happening on the 23rd, 24th. This is from, again, the helio perspective, the sun's point of view. And Mars, we've passed Mars. So, of course, that's why Mars is direct now. And we're done seeing the energy of the Earth so close to Mars. And you could still see Mars up at night. But Earth's over being around Mars, and it's felt very Martian and very intense. And a lot of things are starting to come into breaking the illusions. Not only in this helio with oppositions, because now the sun, if you look at it, it has planets all the way around it. So the collective, from a universal scale, is starting to fill itself out instead of feeling all lopsided and one-sided. It's like, okay, let me look at this, let me look at that. But we have to break our illusions, and we also have to confront and face our true dreams and our true mission from spirit, with Mercury and Venus in opposition to Neptune here. And I think that at the same token, if we just look out and we see Mars, as it's already, of course, past Uranus from the sun's point of view, right? It's Earth that's getting ready for Mars to come in the coming months. See that? So if we look at Earth and we see Mars, and if we move Earth, there's going to be a moment here when, from Earth's point of view, we will see, boom, see that? Look at that. January 20th, 2021. That's Inauguration Day. So, pretty wild stuff out there. And I would also like to just show this real quick last thing, that, as we move to the beginning, let's go to that December 21st, 2020. And see that there's Jupiter and Saturn from Earth's point of view. See that, how that's exact? But see, from the sun's point of view, Jupiter's way past Saturn. But see how exact it is from Earth's point of view? Bang. And the last thing I'll show you here is these eclipses coming up. So here we are today, and when we get to this lunar eclipse, bang, bang, boom, right? Right when Neptune's coming direct here at the end of the month. We're going to see a lunar eclipse. You can see that. You can see that moon right there. Right? And I could probably get it more exact, but I think that's the best I'm going to get it. There it is. And so that'll be November 30th. And what's interesting is, at that same token, from Earth's point of view, Neptune will look like it's going direct because we're passing Neptune far enough. We already passed Neptune. And then we have a solar eclipse that's coming on the 14th of December. And so that solar eclipse, you can see there's the sun and the moon in front of the earth. And that's at a time too where when you start to look at the earth, it's starting to see Jupiter and Saturn. It's funny when I said that, my ears just went. So these frequencies and these vibrations are very extreme. And so I think that it's important for us to note. And before I go into more, I do want to say that we are at a time that I think it's going to be very important for people to realize there's a couple crazy things going on that I think people need to pay attention to, especially when it comes to what's happening with our sun right now. There's a lot of crazy things going on, and especially with what's happening with our electromagnetic field and the weakness that it's getting to, and that the pole shift. I'm not saying that a pole shift is happening exactly, but I am saying that it is teetering more and more and more in that direction. And so, it's kind of funny that we're seeing the planets go through weird frequency stuff based upon the sun shifting. And I recommend that you follow Suspicious Observers on YouTube. Ben's bringing out great work and great studies. And he's also been bringing out some great work when it comes to people, and he puts out alerts on his app and stuff about cosmic health alerts. And that's been something that I've been thinking a lot about with the energies that we're in. And the way that Earth's magnetic field is so weak, and to see the graphs and the trends of the weakness of the Earth's magnetic field. Let me see if I can pull that up. So if we show this, Craig, real quick, as the solar wind comes in from the sun, we have this field that's being created around the earth, right? It's a protective field. This is something I've been showing in slides, and I've been doing in a lot of my old talks. And if we see also the way that we're seeing the magnetic poles of Earth, this is from NASA, by the way. So we could see the shifting, how fast it's going, right? And I'll have to show another. I think I could do like a 10-year. Here's a great image of it. I think it's important for people to realize it's important why I'm using helioastrology mixed with geoastrology to show you all that there are forces greater in the universe that define us than what we are losing ourselves on television. That there's way more going on with the sun that we need to pay attention to than anything else. Especially during these times. And so when people have been freaking out about the weather this year, look at the planetary alignments that I've been showing you, right? And the magnetic poles and the magnetic dipole. So we're seeing so many massive changes. And the reversals, of course, magnetic field reversals. Based upon the study of lava flows of basalt throughout the world, it has been proposed that Earth's magnetic field reverses at intervals ranging from tens of thousands to many millions of years, with an average interval about 300,000 years. However, the last such event, called the Brunches Matayuma reversal, is observed to have occurred some 780,000 years ago. So if you want to use, we might be overdue, we might not, but it's obviously been going in the direction that it's getting, like it's accelerating. And here we go. Man, So here's a good example of the poles. The South Pole has already left Antarctica, and the North Pole is racing across the Arctic Ocean. So even when you start thinking about weather, it's this stuff. Earth's magnetic poles are getting ready to flip. Mission manager. The magnetic field began weakening in 1600. There's a lot of connections. I've connected a lot of things to 1600. The magnetic field weakened 10% from the 1800s to 2000 just alone. The Earth's magnetic field was weakening 5% per century, but now is weakening 5% per decade. The magnetic field is continuing to weaken rapidly. Magnetic reversals can occur in less than 100 years. Magnetic reversals lead to extinction events. This was recently confirmed by the #1 geophysicist journal. Magnetic reversals may cause biblical floods as well. Not to scare people, but I think that this is about a wake-up call. Like, so here's Earth's weakening field, right? Just as you come into 2000, you come into 2010, 2015. Like, this is what the Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, and Capricorn control system doesn't want you to know. This is the energy that's being diverted away from you. This is the energy of what's really going on in our world. And I think it's very important to find a way to really start for you to wake up that there's way more going on. And it is astrologically based. It is astronomically based. That they're both together. Now, a lot of people talk about the Schumann Hertz, right? And how that's been peaking. This is all like, just like today as I'm doing things, I'm looking at Space Weather News, which has also been Davison and what he does on suspicious observers. Where I recommend that you come here so you can start to see, especially prepare yourself when events start to come. And I would recommend with him, he's the master of this stuff. Because this is stuff that I've been following his stuff for about 7 years now, and then correlating it with the astrology and seeing that I guarantee you this week we're going to see some solar wind activity, and we're going to see some weird sunspot activity, and we just had a reversal on the sun. And so things are going to keep reversing on us. And as we are going through our own nodal shifts next week, especially with Neptune squaring it, and especially with the eclipses coming, this matching with all this stuff and seeing the Jupiter-Saturn coming together and starting to, this is all about to get cray-cray. And I just want to remind you all that what's being said about things on the news, we need to maybe be open to having some other conversations. And those are conversations we have on High Vibe. But these are conversations as well that we can't get too much more deep on platforms like this, because that's the world we live in. So I just wanted to present that to you all as I showed you all the actual physical stuff in the astronomy from the sun's point of view, but I wanted to give you another look at it from another point of view too. So make sure that you join highvibe.tv or go into the charts right now. Love you all very much. And for those on High Vibe, let's take a look at this right now. Here we are, Wednesday, November 18th, and we are at the sun finishing here in Scorpio at 27 degrees and Venus starting to square Saturn. We're seeing this happen Wednesday night into Thursday. Not an easy transit, but it is a time for us to go, okay, Saturn is in its home sign. Venus is in its home sign. Venus, what does it do? It's our feel-good energy. It's in Libra, relationships, right? And then what's Saturn? Okay, our duties, our responsibilities, our laws, and our restrictions. And also it's where we grow up, right? So it's a little hard because Venus wants to feel good in Libra. It wants to feel peace. It wants to feel union. It wants to feel sunsets on the beach with a Mai Tai. But Saturn's like, hold on a second. Do you have enough money for that? Is that the right partner for you? Saturn's kind of like trying to check on you. Saturn's daddy, right? So it's like daddy checking on, are you sure you're going to do that? You know what I mean? Like, do you have enough money for that? I'm not taking responsibility for that. You are, you know what I mean? And I don't want to make sure that you take on responsibility is something that you don't really want to do. Especially with the moon, as you see, the moon is crossing these three. So this is an occulting happening, an occultation, and seeing the moon sit in front of these three is actually beautiful. Craig actually, right before he did the show, was like, I just went outside, I saw the moon with Jupiter and Saturn, and it's crazy. Yeah, it is. And this means that these are some of the final weird, and I got a lot of this info from Michael Luton, and a lecture also they did in 2018 at UAC. But these are these final meetings that are happening behind closed doors for control. You can feel it if you tap into it. But as Venus is doing it, what is the sun doing? The sun is sextiling Saturn. So we've got a sun and Venus, Scorpio sun, Venus, Libra, all aspecting Saturn. So the sun is trying to implement changes to the plans, and Venus is saying, hold up, that's not fair. Or hold up, is that going to bring beauty or not? So it's kind of throwing a monkey wrench into the dark space, in my opinion, especially as Neptune is losing control, as the nodes that serve to the pleasure of the sun and the moon are squaring Neptune, right? We have Mars direct now, that warrior inside. So let's take a look down here at our central dignities coming into this week. Sun's not happy by position. Neither is Mercury yet because it's in shadow. The moon's definitely not happy in Capricorn with all this stuff. But Mars is +5. Venus is +5. Jupiter's -9 because of placement, but also in it. And so Saturn's still the ruler. So Saturn's still putting the plans together. It just doesn't have as much power as it would normally do with this Venus and Mars energy, which I think are actually trying to work together right now, even though they're in opposite areas. But there is that whole interesting element as we're still in a Venus opposed Mars aspect, Venus in its home sign, Mars in its home sign, that we're still trying to find our understanding of ourselves and what we connect with and what will bring us beauty, what will bring us happiness. And that's going to change this week as we see Venus move into Scorpio. But this Venus square Saturn is setting the tone, our duties, our responsibilities, what we can handle, what we can't handle, what we need to put to the side or end in order for us to go to the things that really we can connect with. Mercury at the same time, remember, it comes out of shadow at 11 degrees. So if we go and we show you to Thursday now, this is where we start to see on Thursday, boom, Mercury out of shadow, moving forward. And if we look at that speed of Mercury, there it is, back to going a degree in 28 seconds a day, almost getting up to 2 degrees a day. Woo! But it is Thursday, in my opinion, that we are going to start to see, as the moon comes into Aquarius and gets off that occultation with Saturn, the sun still with Saturn, Venus still squaring Saturn, Mercury out of shadow. There's definitely something that we're going to see, because the moon will be at the position while all this is happening where Jupiter and Saturn are going to meet at 0 degrees of Aquarius. That our personal lives and all of us are going to get a big insight here on Thursday. Something's going to be very clear, and something's going to be very like, oh, that's what's been going down. And if you still, at that point, are in denial, well, I think that you got to look deeper. It's asking for you to look deeper into yourself, deeper into the world, deeper into, more importantly, the environment and everything else. Like, I just posted a video on my Instagram about especially here in California, they're especially, I'm in a county where we were doing good, and then they just like wiped that off and said no longer, right? So it's like you kind of work to make your county be better for the things going on with this CV thing, and then, oh no, never mind. But there's a video of city council, and they're fighting up against it, and asking what the people are saying. And this is a time where this Aquarian energy is going to kick into gear, I'm feeling, more than we've seen. I don't want to say there's going to be revolting, but I'm going to say I feel there's going to be a lot of people starting to see more similar and starting to be like, what the heck? And there is that whole South Node Sag thing where the sun is on its way towards, that we have to pay attention to, of like, are you just lost in beliefs? Like, oh no, I'm just going to trust or believe anything. Or are you questioning things? And so I think it's important to question things, and especially as the moon gets ready to square Uranus here at 7 degrees of Taurus. This is definitely going to bring up some stuff into Thursday into Friday that's definitely going to stir the pot. We see Pluto and Jupiter done. We see Pluto come to 23 degrees, so it's off 22 to 23. And this is definitely a more mental degree, not so like, what the heck? And Jupiter at 24, it's getting closer to where it went retrograde, and it's almost out of shadow, right? Jupiter went retrograde at 27 degrees of Capricorn. This is exactly where Saturn is. And remember, America's Pluto is 27 Capricorn. Okay? So I think it's important for people to start to realize, like, this is a pretty big deal. That Jupiter's on its way to come out of shadow. It's not happening this week, but Saturn's at the degree where it did retrograde, and Saturn's also at the Pluto of America, while Pluto itself is now done with Saturn and Jupiter. So Pluto's kind of like, I've exposed everything. I gave it all up. I brought up all the treasures. Like, I brought up all the underworld stuff. And so the plans have been seen and shown. How are you going to handle it in yourself for your own life first? The stuff that Pluto's trying to expose in you, about you rewriting the rules and about what you allow to receive as control in your life. Is it the divine? Or is it, let's just say, governments, media, and so forth? This is what Mercury, at the same time, coming out of shadow, is about. Right? I'll change some colors here. Let's change it up, right? So Mercury moving fast. So I think that Thursday is a very potent day. One thing to pay very extremely attention to, that all these events are happening during this time. Friday, sun comes here to 28 degrees. Venus flies past that 28 and goes, I'm out of here. I'm ready to come into Scorpio. Even though I'm at home, I don't really want to leave, but I'm also in opposition to Mars. But in different signs at least. And so we're going to see a big shift here as Venus is going to be in a place where she doesn't like to be with the sun, and Mercury now is off its shadow, moving fast, and this moon here is going to square Mercury. This moon's going to square the sun, but when it comes into Pisces, the moon will square a sun in Sag. But we are definitely going through some radical shifts Thursday and Friday. And I would say that a lot of them are going to be dealing with uncovering the truth and what's fair and balanced. And there's going to be a teeter-totter moment here on Friday for people in their lives on choices about relationships, big time. Because remember, Saturn and Pluto met there in 1983 when they finished in Libra at 28 and 29. So here's Venus now crossing that energy. Mercury just retrograded. Venus, I said, like at the beginning of Deep Astrology, did that in October and November of 2018. And, you know, we got Juno at 20 making a quincunx to the North Node. I mean, this is why I'm saying, like, there is a more twin-like energies to connect with when it comes to partnering. We also have Black Moon Lilith. She is getting closer to Aries again, trying to bring up a lot of upheaval. And Pluto is now an exact square to Aries. So there's chaos for those that are not of the truth. If you're seeing the truth, which that's always an objectable thing, it's more the process of being willing to look at all things. But anybody who's going to deny looking at all facts or deny looking at all things and just being like, no, this is end all be all, not going to pan out too well with Pluto square Aries, not going to pan out too well with this moon in Aquarius. It's almost going to feel like any energy attached to that, there's going to start to be some sort of Scorpionic Aquarian wild edgy energy, like, no, I don't like that. So in your own life, any energy that you feel like you're not getting all the info from, especially a moon square Mercury, I was born with that one. You know, it's like communication can be a little off, especially if it's not from honesty and truth. And sharing our true uniqueness and our real depth and feeling. It might be hard. We might have to find some really weird ways to do that. But it's extremely important for us to do. We're going to see that moon trine over to the North Node as well. We'll keep focusing on that truth. And we're going to say goodbye to Venus and Libra, which, by the way, Venus and Saturn, look at that, plus 10, Venus plus 8. And everything else is pretty much kind of bleh. But watch how things shift on Saturday. Saturday, we got Venus coming into Scorpio, bang. And what else do we have? The sun. I did the chart for the exact moment of the sun entering into the ingress, of course, of Sag, which will be November 21st, 2020 at 12:40 p.m. Pacific. Now, Sagittarius lightens up the load. It's fire sign. It's a mutable fire sign. It also is the last quadrant. So remember, quadrant-wise here, we'll use some crazy colors. So, all right, here's Sag, right? And this quadrant goes to the season. Actually, it goes like this. We'll go from Capricorn to Libra, right? So this is the fire sign energy that's right here. And maybe it'd be better if we did it in red. There we go. Then, of course, we get fire fixed in Leo in the middle of the season, which, of course, that ends in Virgo. It starts in Cancer. And then, of course, we start with fire at the beginning of this season, which is spring. So we're at the last quadrant of fire, and then, of course, we go through the longest one where it's 3 in a row of a whole season, and there's no fire in the quadrant of the season. 0. Right? All Capricorn, all Aquarius, and all Pisces, no fire. There's always fire in each quadrant, except for the winter, or the summer if you're in Brisbane or Australia or South America and South Africa and so forth. But this is a pretty wild day because now the sun's with the south node. And so we don't want to light up illusions in itself, especially as we're seeing this pretty intense as the nodes are squaring Neptune. That stopped. Like, let's see Neptune's speed. I mean, it's at retrograde at 15 seconds a day. I mean, it's not moving at all. Interesting to see the declination going on there in 5. Like, Pluto's way far south from the declination point. Neptune's 5 degrees south. See how Mars is a little bit north? Jupiter's way south with Saturn. They're like exact. Capricorn. There's something about these trajectories, these declinations that I always find very interesting. And I just want to say that it's important to remember that this is your time to use this Sag energy for positivity. Sag is jovial, it's positive, it's optimistic. But we need to be positive and optimistic in a new way. We can't keep believing in the same stories. We need to counterbalance it with a new truth. We need to counterbalance by looking at the truth that's been deceived by us in ourselves and by the outer world and whatever Neptune rules, media, magic, things that have not been on the up and up. And we're going to become aware of that as the moon is in Aquarius, finishing there and getting ready to square the sun as it comes in. It's going to be a big wake-up call this weekend. Especially with Venus here now at 0, it exits out of the Libra energy completely, which had that. There's nothing else coming while we still have Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn in Capricorn. The last time we had those 3 in the same sign was Libra, and that was in the beginning of the 80s. And then, of course, it all finished in 83. So there is a complete transit done from 83 to 2020, at this point. This is the day, November 21st, 2020, about relationship shit. I know people have been waiting a long time for me to like give that truth out. And if you watch Climax 2020, I go even show you how if you don't follow this, there's so many traps that you just don't keep listening to the story, that it's not going to be fun. Especially if you just follow Venus as it's getting ready for its oppositions to Uranus. Your Venus will be on its way towards the south node. And this Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto thing is now the new cycle. Fully. And there's nothing else that's coming into retrograde over these spots in Libra. Especially any major stuff for a long time. A long time. We're talking about years. We're also talking about only Saturn that will be the biggest planet to come through there, and Jupiter, where they will not meet. So that meeting already happened in the early 80s. We also have to remember that we're going to see Mercury, and let me actually wipe this up. Let me clean up my mess. What a messy chart. I'm a messy astrologer. That it's important for us to note that this Mercury here is going to quincunx Mars. I don't think this is a bad quincunx. I think it's one where, let's look deep at what our deep needs are and what our truth is and define us from that. And with the sun and Sag, it's like with the south node, let's churn out another story. Look at the south node to me as, it reminds me of, like, if you had soil or dirt, like churning the soil. You know what I mean? Like using this as a shovel. You could either churn the dirt with the shovel or dig yourself in a deeper hole. Think of it like that. And this Mercury quincunx, I know it's going to be a fast one, but I think it's a big deal on this weekend with Venus entering and this the beginning of the whole new full cycle. And really, this opens up the door of the relationship truths dramatically, and understanding what we want more in our life in a weird way. Also, Juno is off the quincunx to the North Node. And that's another signal to me. Like, I can't even get more precise astrologically with saying that we are officially into true territory for where relationships must go. And it was Venus at 0 degree. Man, I'm going to get crazy on you all for 1 second here with some astrology that'll blow your mind. Oh, we don't want to mess with my chart here, but okay. Let me remind you the big things that have happened with Venus at 0 degree. I'm going to have to remind people because I know that's my job. I know that some people are like, oh, let me try and figure that one out. But it's like, I remember this stuff in my head. I didn't even plan this. But it's like, oh, this makes sense. Okay. Does anybody remember October 23rd of 2014? No. I do. Sun, moon, eclipse, Venus, 0 degree, Scorpio. That was in between, and what I'm going to do right now, hold on this, we're going to break this down, and then let's break down another date. We want to look at the years after that. Let's go to 2018, and let's look at that Venus retrograde. Boom, at 0. Oh, look at that. You can't make that up. It was so perfect. I remember doing the astrology this day and going, my mind was blown. There we go. That's October 30th of 2018. And let's do, for all intensive purposes, 10 years ago. And the Venus retrograde there, it's so easy once you understand astrology, you'll never have to like search for these things because you can do it in your brain. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the way astrology. Oh, you can't make this up. It's the ballet of the universe that gets me turned on more than anything in the world. Okay. It was a pretty crazy day, actually. But it actually, I'll do this and then I'll actually move it to the correct day just to, boom, there we go. And we can actually do it like this. It's kind of interesting. Okay. All right. So I'm going to add these bad boys here. Bad boy, Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran with a bunch of bad boys. I'm being Uncle Corn Pop tonight, giving everybody a little bit extra. I promise, especially you high vibers, I need to give you some extra. I'm going to be giving some extra to everybody. All right. Why is Venus on Scorpio, and why is it that I am saying that this relationship thing is such a big deal? Let's actually go to 2010 first. Let's go to the beginning. Why is that important? Because, one, it was a Saturn-Jupiter opposition in 2010 that had just finished, okay? So, Saturn opposite Jupiter, right? We saw this earlier in that 2010. So actually, let's pull it up really quick. But I'm going to keep that one because it's great for Venus stuff. But let's go to months. Let me bring this all the way back. Okay, so Saturn opposed Jupiter would have been a month prior. Well, that was close. That was close. Let's just kind of use this as the... There it is. Okay. That was the last one, I swear. And I'm done adding charts. But when the maestro is going, the maestro's going. You know what I mean? Okay. So let's start with May of 2010. I think it's very important for people to realize that Jupiter and Saturn were in opposition with Uranus at the end of Pisces, and there was an opposition to Saturn. So that's the 10-year cycle, because remember that Jupiter and Saturn met up in 2000 in Taurus at 22 degrees, okay? So it took 10 years for Jupiter to oppose Saturn. It's a 20-year cycle. Why is that so important? It was also Chiron entering Pisces. Owie, mama, that was with the moon. How interesting. It was also North Node and Pluto that year. 2010 changed your life. There are remnants of 2010 and what it did for you for now, just overall, because we're finishing that cycle of 10 years. But coming back to now November of 2010, when we had the Venus retrograde in Scorpio. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, I'm correct. It was at such a heightened moment. Saturn was in Libra about relationships. Chiron came back, met with Neptune in Aquarius. Now we're getting ready for a lot of this Aquarius stuff. North Node and Pluto were conjuncting, and this was Venus retrograding, coming into that zero. I thought it was interesting to put the moon with it to show you these were extreme times. Whenever Venus retrogrades at that 0 point, massive stuff is happening. Like Pluto in the North Node in Capricorn, forcing us to start to see the world was going to change, and I believe that at that point our world was really changing. But also there's a lot of interesting things like the cell phone becoming like internet based and app based at that time. Yeah, the iPhone came out in 2007, but it was like, wow, the Galaxy came out in 2010. You know, and now it started to be like you can go on the internet with your phone, but it also was a control system that was being injected into our society. But that Venus at 0 brought out in your relationship life something that had to either A, you went through a breakup, or you went into a deep internal powerful thing, okay? Or you felt like you just don't ever get anybody or anything. The reason why I say that is because it is so extreme. On October 30th of 2018, when Venus retrograded back to that same spot, it was an exact fixed cross to the moon in the North Node in Leo, to Uranus opposition in Taurus, and to the squares and the oppositions to the South Node in Aquarius. And Mars had just come out of its shadow where it had retrograded in Aquarius that year. And look at Jupiter at 28 degrees of Scorpio, where the sun's going to be when I'm saying all this stuff is happening. But Jupiter was here with Mercury, while Mercury's coming out of its shadow right now during this time. And Saturn, of course, was in Capricorn with Pluto, and it was the beginnings of what the hell is going on. So why is this a big deal? I've just shown you 2 points. What's the in-between point? October 23rd of 2014, a solar eclipse on top of Venus at 0 degree direct, with Saturn and Scorpio at 22, exactly opposing the Jupiter. I'm doing this in my head. I don't know why I know all this shit. Jupiter and Saturn at 22 Taurus from a 20-year cycle. There's something about the way that I would draw this out. 2010 to 2018 with Scorpio Venus is this is a Venus retrograde year with a Jupiter Saturn. So this is like an opposition. So it's like, okay, we have to work together, Jupiter and Saturn, and find ways. And I feel like this was a feeling that we were really coming to a positive stage. The middle ground of 2014 was a burning out of the sun in an eclipse with Venus. With Saturn there. This was a rough point in our relationship, journeys of our desires, feeling like didn't go exactly to plan. Rough. I remember sitting in my house watching that eclipse in Hollywood and freaking the fuck out about my life. I was alone. I was having panic attacks every day. And I remember I could barely look at it. And I remember I shouldn't go look at this eclipse. And I looked at it anyway. Then we had the 2018 one, which is again on a major change point in the reality. Both of them. Because I just showed you in the chart right here. Look at this 2014 one. That is massive. An eclipse, North Node 19, Mercury retrograde in Libra. It's about relationships and trying to figure out those changes. Jupiter was in Leo at that time, square Saturn. So we had a Jupiter square Saturn in the middle too, right? So there's the Jupiter. Here's Jupiter, Saturn, opposite, right? So opposite. Here's Jupiter square Saturn. 2018, that's Jupiter in Scorpio and Saturn, and they're kind of like done with their sextile that year, but they were in a sextile, so they were in an easier aspect. But there was a lot of tension if we go back to that, of that fixed cross. And so this is going to bring up all those events. And you have to remember that this is more about the Scorpio transition from 1984, which I can remember in my head because I'm fucking crazy. August 28th. It's going to be August 28th, 1984. Oh. Okay. Why that's such a big day? I'll show you right now. Here, let's do some hours. Doot. Okay. There's Pluto at 29:59, the last hour, August 27th, 1984, at 9:23 p.m. That's August 28th around the world. We just go 1 hour later, bang, Pluto at 0 degree with Saturn. So the Pluto-Saturn finished in Libra completely. Now we're in a Pluto-Saturn now. So we were in a Pluto-Saturn in Libra in 81, 82, 83. And then 84 comes along and then it comes back, Pluto, to say, that's what's weird. People born with Pluto Libra in 84 are weirdos, like the Leo King. And then Pluto went direct and went in on August 28th of 1984 and met with Saturn there, but not to meet, but same sign. That's why the 80s were so crazy. We're not going to see that this time. But Pluto at 0. Scorpio, the home of Scorpio. Look at on that day, the moon met with Venus. This is my progress chart, by the way, right now. This is exactly what I'm going through. Now my progress moon's in Libra, so it's been hours after this. But I literally have lived this day. I was alive during this day, and I've progressed. This was 36. This is 35 days after my birthday to 36 days after my birthday. So that's why I know it. But what I'm trying to show you is that was the shift point. Pluto no longer in Libra, Saturn no longer in Libra. That transit's done there, but it needs to go through the whole cycle to complete, to hit again, which we saw in 2020 on January 12th. And they're still in the sign. But now that we've seen so many aspects. If we come back to here, we've seen so many aspects that have done all this work. We'll use this purple. That Venus went back into Libra, 25 degrees, and went direct. Maybe it was like 24, but it was right there. Mercury just did the same thing. You go back to the 2010, right? Venus retrograde comes back into Libra with Saturn there. That made a lot of relationship stuff real that we've spent the last 10 years trying to figure out. Then the solar eclipse has exactly at zero with Scorpio there, zero Scorpio, with Saturn opposing that Jupiter-Saturn, and everything's connected to Jupiter-Saturn. Square point in 2014, opposition in 2010, and sextile in 2018. So this moment that we are at here now is the true territory for relationships and where they must go by spirit and the transformation that's happening. This is tapping into your memory. This is, Michael Luton did a great talk on this about time travel is through your mind right now and your memories. I forgot who it was talking about time travel and writing a journal and how you can go back to that. There's a lot with this Sun in Scorpio about the story of your relationship life, your values in yourself, and massive changes now about what you pick for your long term and knowing the wisdom to make the best choice for your destiny. And you've got to now either A, create that story or lose yourself in the illusion of the story that you don't want to face the truth of if it's not in the highest capacity. And those that are smart right now are looking at all that data and fact. I guarantee you 1 million trillion whatevers, because who knows if we're even going to have money anymore, that nobody's going to tell you this. And that this Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn now are official, the new Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn of our times. Not the 80s. The 80s are done. It is ancient history now. And this moment is the transformational moment of the sun coming into Sag. Where's Jupiter? Oh, it's with Pluto. Where's the sun? In Sag. Jupiter's at its fall position. So you can fall from grace if you don't pay attention to your truth about where you know your long-term game and the ladder that you want to climb in your life is too. The illusion that's exactly squaring Neptune that stopped, I've showed you. It's about to come direct. And you already know in your mind, you are curious and you see you're not tricking yourself, because the trickster right now is in the belief system of hopeless beliefs that you already know have no factual evidence that it's possible. Or continually factual evidence that it's never going to be the way you want it to be. And that's the same time that Mercury's out of its shadow, and Mercury at 14 degrees is quincunxing Mars for you. It's just going to check on that and be like, yo, like, are you going to identify with that or what? And it is a moon in Aquarius. It is having us emotionally be able to detach from that old past from 1983 to now. At the same time, because it's also in trine to where Saturn and Pluto all were, and it's going to come into Pisces and trine Venus and Scorpio on that Saturday. This weekend blows my mind. It's a lot of info. But you can't deny that Black Moon Lilith at 25 degrees and with Aries there as a squaring over to Jupiter, being like, wake up and stop believing in your own bullshit and or others' bullshit. Wake up from the illusion and get the courage to go on the new journey. Write the new story. New. Not old. Old stories aren't going to work. If we move to Sunday, there's that moon, and you know, I didn't put it at the exact thing because I was like, it's in between there, but that moon square the sun. It's going to be crazy as we enter into the new story. Either Matt, that's why I brought up Alice in Wonderland. And it is really going through the looking glass, right? Of your truth. And Venus is off that 0 degree spot and now covering into this territory where there is no Saturn Pluto. There's Mercury here. Venus and Mercury like each other. They're the two that are closest to the sun in between Earth. They serve our inner needs, our inner mind and our inner values and our relationships. But Venus is at detriment, so let's take a look. Venus is at -2. Remember, it was at +8 just days before. So I could actually look at the day that this craziness is happening, and Venus is at -2. When the day before that, it was at +8. 10-point drop. It's like the markets, right? So you'd think, well, why would you think this is such a great thing? That it's dropping. Yeah, it's dropping the old story. That's what planets in detriment and fall do. They drop old stories, especially Jupiter in fall. It's dropping the old story that's not your destiny anymore. And Sag is about stories. Stories we tell ourselves, stories that gurus tell us, idols that we believe in. Like, this is us getting rid of who we idolize in our that are not aligned with us and that are not aligned in our truth. Doesn't have to be a spiritual idol. We can idolize a relationship. We can idolize, I can idolize that. Maybe I idolize Sprite too much. You know what I mean? Who knows? But Mercury at 16 on Sunday is going to start its trine to Neptune. So we can start to see this new story clearly. And yes, watch your mental health, because I think if you're not willing to accept this truth about the new story that you know needs to be written, and if you're writing a new story from an old story, are you really writing a new story, or are you just writing over old, are you just tattooing over an old tattoo? I've dated girls who've been like, I was like, oh, look at that. What's that? I go, yeah, I mean, I used to have that too, but I had a tattoo over that dude's name. That means they're carrying the story still. Have you ever thought about that? It's inked in. Don't double ink something and think that you can put makeup on it and make it by changing it. That's Sun and South Node. And we have Black Moon, Lilith, and Aries getting tighter, and they are still squaring Jupiter. So we have to be very courageous in writing our new stories, and we have to come from a more magical and in an exciting place. And I think that we can. I think this weekend can bring up those, but I think, people doubling down are going to get a kick in the ass on, especially relationship things. I've showed plenty of proof here. I'm even give you extra charts to show you, like, if it's just not good and it's not what there's no more weighing out. Monday, a very interesting day with the moon that'll be with Neptune and square the nodes. And that's where I think some of that mind-bending energy can get more extreme, because, there's going to be some sort of illusionary story coming out in the world. I'll just say that. Okay? And then a truth story coming out, and you're going to have to decipher, and also in your own personal life. We are, at the same token, seeing what I think is going to be quite interesting as the sun is entering into Sag and this Venus is officially in Scorpio. We see Mercury exactly trying Neptune. So we need to be able to see through the truth or the illusion. And see through that and see through the eye of the needle, right? Also, it is going to be interesting seeing the sun at a +4, the moon at a +0 as it's with Neptune, but it's in Pisces. It's not at the end. And this is like the end of stories because the moon is finishing also at the end of the cycle of just the zodiac itself. So this whole week is the illusionary stories that we keep telling ourselves coming to an end. And the light that we must bring and the truth that we must bring. It's Tuesday that we see quite a lot here. This moon comes into Aries and starts the new story in a trine to the sun in Sag. So, new stories are going to be good. And Venus, at the same token, has now moved to 4 degrees. And it's getting ready for its opposition to Uranus, right? And at the same token, Venus is going to start its semi-square to the south node. You didn't think I was busting that? busting that one. Busting that out right there. Yeah, it is, isn't it? So let's not create a half-kinked hose into trying to be obsessive over a belief that something can change to make it better that already is not good. That's what the obsession holds with a -2. It's good for dumping it. It's not good for re-tattooing it. And this Aries energy with the moon is going to create a quincunx over to Venus in Chiron. So let's not go wound ourselves by jumping into a 45-degree angle with a south node delusion. And with Venus, that's getting ready for the opposition of Uranus. Are we really going to go to heaven, or are we really going to let go of our obsessions over old stories, or are we ready to transmute and connect to the ultimate new story in heaven? These nodes have just loved sitting here at 20, I'm going to tell you. So that also makes the Ceci quadrant from Venus over to the North Node. A lot going on with Venus. Lots going on this week with Venus. Especially if Venus squares Saturn at the beginning of the week and so forth. There's also Saturn finishing at 27 degrees where Jupiter went retrograde. So Saturn's kind of etching in the karmic cycle of stories, and Jupiter's at its fall position. Jupiter is slammed in between Pluto and Saturn. These are the tightest orbs we're seeing right now of these three. So these are extreme potent times. And it's going to look scary. It's going to look scary with all this Scorpio, but the Sag is like, unless you're not going to fall for a horror movie that you're choosing to continue, you'll either heal yourself and find confidence and not go through chaos, or quite the opposite. You'll feel wounded, you'll feel that you're not yourself, and you'll be in the chaos because you're not facing the truth of a new story to the true destiny in your life. We've waited a long time for this, folks, because we have eclipse season that's building just days away from that, as I showed you on the 30th, as the moon comes into Gemini and at 8 degrees will oppose that sun at 8. And if we watch Neptune as it comes direct that day, look at it, it's now at -9 degree or minutes. Seconds. It's not moving anywhere. Look at Mercury, too. Mercury, that's trying Neptune at that point, is doing 1.5 minutes a day. Sorry, 1.5 degrees a day. It's just flying by. Look at Venus. She's back to her full speed. Look at everything's starting to get going. Look at that, 11:11 with Jupiter. If you're into the 11:11 thing, there it is about the new stories. Last chart is the Helio, which I showed you at the beginning that we were starting the week off with a Mercury in exact opposition to Neptune. I showed you this is the sun in the middle. And we finished the week off with Venus in that space in opposition on the Tuesday, and we will see Mercury enter into Libra. And look at Jupiter-Saturn here at 2 and 3 degrees. And look at Mars is done with the conjunction point to Uranus and moving forward into building a better life for ourselves. And we are going to start to see that. And I would say that it's very important for us to do that. We're also seeing Pluto exactly squaring Aries, right? So I think it's important, and Pluto's on its way moving away from that. But I would say that, it's like we've seen enough of the chaos in our life. We are now dealing with whether or not we're ready to just redefine and not go through chaos anymore and let go of chaotic stories, let go of chaotic perspectives, let go of chaotic ideas of stories that we're trying to still hold on to in our personal lives. On the world scale, I think everybody's over the stories that have been told. That's just my truth. Like, if you really still are owning in those stories, that's the trap. Especially if we see Jupiter with Saturn now in Aquarius. It's time for us to move on, right? Aquarius is about the water barrier. Let's move forward. But on Earth, we're not there yet, right? On Earth, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn are wanting to kind of control the narrative still. So don't be scared about earthly projections of how life should be looking like and stuff. This is the week where you need to look deeper and start to see the amazingness of Venus and the alignments that it's going through, the transmutation of multiple 0 points of Venus and 0 Scorpio that are very imperative to the transformation of your personal life, your values, your money, and your self-worth and relationships. And you can have all of them, or you can have none of them, depending on the story and the perspective and the illusion in yourself and the illusion of the stories of the world that are trying to rip that from you. And that's what's scary, because that's true based off the astrology. And if you want to counter me on this, please let me know. Put it in the comment section. But please provide evidence for me, because I'm giving you tons of evidence. I don't think it's any coincidence, too, as I showed you, as 1984 is the year that Pluto went into Scorpio at 0 degree. So the home sign, and then George, that Orwellian story, Big Brother and government control and stuff, 1984 goes along with it. Are you controlled by wanting to stay in the same narrative of stories and relationships and values that are putting you down and not taking you up? Especially as we are seeing Venus quincunxing over to this and Sesquiquadrate at the North Node. That also means that if we start to understand astrology, right, Uranus, as it's retrograding backwards, which it is going to retrograde back to 6 degrees, and Neptune will come forward, is the semi-square between Uranus and Neptune are coming back. They're not there yet. They're 39 degrees or 49 degrees, but we are getting close, right? And that's been about against the people for their values, what the Neptune delusion media tells us, and in ourselves, the delusions we tell ourselves about getting to a better place in our life. That maybe this whole notion of what's being told of how to get to a better place in life has been an illusion and been false this whole time and won't work, however you want to look at it. And we finished that week off with Mercury at 19 on its way to meet with Juno. And that's what this week's coming up with a lunar eclipse and with Neptune coming direct and on that following week. And at the same token, the Sun and Sag getting closer to the South Node for us to either hard drive erase the stories that we no longer want to have. It reminds me of when I used to have an Amiga computer or an Apple IIe Apple, like getting rid of programs on disks and then having my grandfather, who programmed a program for me, put it on a disk on my Amiga and be like, okay, here you go. And then putting in a new disk, a new story. Or for some people who aren't computer nerds, like it'd be like rewriting a new DVD and putting a new DVD in, or making a new story in a movie. And I think this can be one of the most beautiful weeks of our life of finally erasing issues, dealing with attachments to stories and relationship stories and value stories and money stories and obsessions with things that don't bring us our wholeness. They can finally end. And it might be a process over this next month, especially as the control system is very strong and the fear of control against ourselves is going to be very big. Will it win? I don't think so. Especially with Jupiter and Saturn coming to Aquarius. And they already are up in the heavens with the sun. And I focus on that every day. And I focus on my earthly self that realizes I got to get over this shit on earth right now to connect with the heavens and what the heavens are showing. I love you all very much. Please spread this message to everybody. I hope it helps you. The illusion's going to get tighter and tighter and tighter. And I know that we all, as a collective in the spiritual community, are unifying and waking everybody up, except there is unique divisiveness in those areas. But it's like, are you coming from a space of where you're using the universe and you're channeling divine? Or are you using stories that you're seeing on the internet to define things, which is the illusion? And next week when I come back, I'll read you an excerpt from Aleister Crowley's view of Neptune that I haven't before, which a lot of people are scared even when I say that name. But his viewpoint on Neptune is quite scary if you're not aware of it. And you must start to be aware of it in yourself and not to fall for your own illusions or the illusions in the world that are creating dark magic on you because you're falling for it. I love you all very much. I'm sending you my best. Please subscribe to highvibe.tv. Make sure that you check out my paid video section and where you can get Climax 2020 if you want to get deeper into it. And I show you all the danger zone points of where Venus is coming if you want to deny what I say this week. And I would say that this is a week to celebrate about the big transformational changes that are happening in our collective, in our individual selves when it comes to these areas that are Venus related of money, self-worth, relationships, projects, and our connection to the things that make us feel good. I love you all, and I'll see you on the next Deep Astrology.